Thank you and good evening. This evening we have a presentation and a workshop, and it's concerning the city's responsibilities moving forward for November 11th, 2018, because it is the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day, what we now call Veterans Day, and a number of us felt that it was very, very important that the city step up to a higher level, literally. We've already begun engaging all the veterans posts throughout the city, looking and helping, requesting their assistance. Dale, our city historian, is here, is working on a brief presentation for us. One of the things we're working on is identifying surviving family members of people who served in World War I, and if there are still some family members who reside in our community and or surrounding communities, or even beyond, our work is to identify them and to include them in this program because we think it's that important. Dale, how are we doing?
Well, I think is this working?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think we're ready if this, if I can figure out how this works. Well, I just thought I'd start off by just saying a few things about World War I.
Microphone.
Can you pick up the mic?
Mike. Yeah.
Sorry. Thought I'd start by saying a few things about World War I. As you know, this is the centennial, the 100th anniversary of the war. The United States entered the war in April 6, 1917. And of course, the war ended on Armistice Day, November 11th, 1918. So we're in it for a very brief period of time. And in fact, the fighting that we were engaged in mostly took place over, say, a 6-month period in 1918. And in that time, 116,000 Americans died, which is a pretty large number of casualties when you consider, the relatively brief period of time that our men were there. And of course, not all of those were battlefield casualties. Many were from illness, accidents, and so forth. But World War I really is your first truly modern war where, it's a total war in every respect. The entire population is engaged. So this is a pamphlet that was put out by the government, How to Win the War. This is aimed at school children in the upper elementary grades and in high school. And basically what it's doing, let's see if I can master this, was doing is suggesting that they buy war stamps. Oh. Aha. Oops, wrong way. How did that happen? This is the World War I canon, which the city has had since 1926. This is supposed to be at the end of the presentation, but I guess it's demanding to be seen now. This is what our troops were up against in World War I. This and many other weapons, of course, but artillery was the major cause of death in combat in World War I. And this threw an 89-pound shell 5 miles. It could be filled with shells could be filled with high explosive or poison gas. So this is a very deadly weapon. Norwich started to request a war trophy as early as January 1919. So the war had not even been over for 2 months. We were already requesting a trophy such as this to bring back and display as memorial to the war. It actually took 7 years to get it. It didn't arrive until 1926. Back up. I'm going the wrong direction, apparently. Tap. Well, at any rate, I'll leave it there. Unless someone here can operate this thing? Okay, thanks. So at any rate, oh, there we go. Back one. Go back. There we go. So they're suggesting that kids buy thrift stamps, war saving stamps. And what I do is push this aside. All right. War saving stamps, they're estimating they're going to raise they're going to raise $2 billion using these stamps, war saving stamps. Everyone can join the cause, whether or not they can actually serve overseas or not. You can see the soldier in the background at the window. Post officers are also called into use for recruiting, the draft, and so forth. The war also meant a tremendous increase in the number of civil servants. The government had to add enormous numbers of people in the various war bureaus, departments, export, procurement of food, munitions, and of course inspirational posters were put up everywhere. To reach the top, we must climb the stairs. There's no elevator to leadership. Persistent effort is the only road to success. The better we work, the higher we'll climb. Organizations like the Knights of Columbus were involved in helping out with the war effort. They had huts for the servicemen, both here in the training camps and overseas. And this is the slogan of the KFC, everyone welcome, everything free. Quite a nice little song. The Knights of Columbus Museum in New Haven, by the way, has a major exhibit on World War I. Very much worth going to if you have a chance. And of course, the war hadn't even been completed before they start to, list the people from Norwich who are serving in the war. Very important. The honor roll of men from Norwich serving in the war, the Navy, the Army, the Marines, and also women who are working in the medical department, in ambulance corps, in a variety of roles, yeomanettes in the Navy. And one of the, I think, striking things about World War I is that women played a very important role in the war. The mayor of Norwich's wife, Catherine Desmond, took charge of the 4th Liberty Bond campaign. They had 400 women working in Norwich, getting people to buy war bonds. It's a list of 185 names of people in Taffville from the Red Cross. These would be civilian volunteers. Of course, we have the memorial on Chelsea Parade. There are about 1,400 names on this, but I don't think it is totally complete or accurate. This is the Panema Mills. Some of these men worked for Panema but did not live in Taffville necessarily. They might be in Lisbon. And of course, Norwich Free Academy has a plaque with 12 names of those who died on it, but 344 attendees of Norwich Free Academy actually went to the war besides the 12 killed, so 356. And some of those were not from Norwich, but they studied here, they had friends here, and so forth. And of course, you now were raising an army of over 1 million men. You had a tremendous problem in terms of feeding and housing the troops. Camps were built, such as Camp Devens in Massachusetts. This is the Company B of the 101st Machine Gun Battalion at Fort Devens. This is New Haven. Was an encampment there for the National Guard. And in fact, if any of you have seen the animated movie Sergeant Stubby, it takes place, starts out at this camp. Quite a good movie. Sergeant Stubby was a homeless dog that becomes the mascot of the 102nd Regiment, which is almost entirely made of Connecticut men. When they returned, they were given, the veterans were given in 1919 a huge feast at the Armory in Hartford. This is them marching in parade at Fort Devens after their return. And then it's a huge rally in Hartford where they presented the flags of the various units involved in fighting in France to the governor of Connecticut, Marcus Holcomb. And we have the, what I've done here is I've included just some photographs of some of the folks who served in Norwich during World War I. This is William Durr from Norwichtown, valedictorian of the Town Street School, died shortly before his 20th birthday in France, killed in action. This is the only photograph the family could find of John Ulanowitz, or Ulanowitz. It's apparently cut out from a larger group photograph. He died the day before William Durr in France. Perhaps the first Norwich man to die. Wait a minute. Oh, we're going too fast here. Okay. Back up. What am I doing wrong here? Well, we're back in the Civil War. I think I may need your help in reversing direction here. Yeah. There we go. Okay. One back. Yep.
He's going to
No,
want it. He's going
that's
to want
good. And I press this left one to go forward.
Notice I didn't run down there.
This is one of the survivors. I think this is, yeah, it's one of the men who survived the war. This is Mr. Brown, Thomas G. Brown, Gilbert Brown, writer, survived the war. This is one who did not survive the war, Dominic Barber, in civilian clothing prior to joining up, and here he is at one of the camps dressed in his uniform. He was a cook in one of the artillery units and was killed by shell fire. And this is Mr. Dawson, George Alexander Dawson, a native of Scotland, again killed in France and buried there. Why does this keep going back? Well,
Dale? Yeah.
sorry about my ineptness with this machine. But, you know, the point is that we had a fairly large number of men die in World War I, and many others come back wounded. In fact, the disabled American veterans came out of World War I. The American Legion, whose post is named for Robert O. Fletcher, came out of World War I. Also, the Peter Gallen post in Taftville, and the Richard Horrigan VFW post. All were named for World War I casualties. And of course, the wounded and the ill probably made up many more. In fact, my own grandfather was in the First World War. He was a disabled American veteran, and he actually ended up committing suicide because of his disability. So, you know, it has a lot of meaning, I think, even for those of us who are here today. And this is one of the reasons I think it is important that we acknowledge the true sacrifice that these men made in the First World War. And this cannon, which the city actually owns, it's a fairly rare thing. There are not that many of them left. We're hoping, as part of the commemoration of World War I, to see that restored. And Tom Callanan is here to sing a song of his own composition, the former state troubadour.
Yes.
Last summer, Dale came by. I was working in my yard and mentioned the howitzer and Bob Fletcher, of which I knew nothing of either. My great uncle was killed in World War I, my grandfather's brother, and so World War I has a special meaning to my family, as it does to thousands and thousands of others here and throughout the world. So Dale told me about this howitzer, field piece, as you're calling it, and so he said, we need a song about this, and so that's what I do. The song is called Norwich's Kriegsbeute, and I believe you have copies of it, yes, maybe, with photos of the way it is now, and some of the press clippings from the bulletin and other things that were written about Mr. Fletcher, who was captain of the baseball team and graduated in 1912 from NFA. So he's a real person, you know, it's not just a name on a VFW or American Legion post. If you care to sing along, simple. Norwich once had a howitzer right on Chelsea Parade, displayed as a trophy of the Great War where sons' sacrifices were made. It came to the city in 26 as a post-war request by the Legion, where post number 4 had been named for a well-loved native son. Kriegsbeute means trophy of war, displayed by the victors of what they fought for. Kriegsbeute placed for people to see in honor of those who served honorably. The gun by itself is made from parts that have no will of their own. Envisioned by the minds of men, its destructive power was shown. On battlefields and forts and ships, assembled and fired by men, over and over and over and over and over and over again. Kriegsbeute means trophy of war, displayed by the victors of what they fought for. Kriegsbeute placed for people to see in honor of those who served honorably. Who were the Huns who fired the gun that ended up in Norwich? And who were the Yanks in tanks or on foot who left the trenches for forests. Could this be the gun that killed Bob Fletcher, the Rose City's well-loved son? Ironic indeed if that gun came here while Bob rests near Verdun. Kriegsbeute means trophy of war, displayed by the victors of what they fought for. Kriegsbeute placed for people to see in honor of those who served honorably. But it matters not if this was the gun, nor by whom it was made. By this gun, or one of its comrades in arms, Bob Fletcher was laid in his grave. How fitting then that this gun should be seen as Norwich's trophy of war, in memory of her gallant sons, on display forevermore. Kriegsbeute means trophy of war, displayed by the victors of what they fought for. Kriegsbeute placed for people to see in honor of those who served honorably. When the gun arrived in Norwich, it was welcomed with fanfare and pomp, but since then it's been neglected and disrespectfully dumped. With wheels and carriage all rotted, within brambles and vines it now lays, discarded by those whose memories are short, forgetting bygone days. Kriegsbeute means trophy of war, displayed by the victors of what they fought for. Kriegsbeute placed for people to see in honor of those who served honorably. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom and Dale. It's our intention to work as hard as we can over the course of the next months. Whether we raise enough funds sufficiently in the private sector to renovate this gun in time for Veterans Day remains to be seen. But our efforts to promote a proper Veterans Day, recognizing the 100th anniversary, will not be short-sighted in any way, shape, or form. We have a number of veterans who are here tonight. If they just want to stand, they're going to be helping us with this endeavor. They represent different posts throughout the city. We also have members of the general public who have agreed to help us, and the door's open for anyone else who wants to roll up your sleeve, including council members. We'll be looking for your help and guidance to make this a really great and respectful and honorable celebration this Veterans Day, as it should be, as it has been every year, but even more so this time because it's the 100th anniversary. Again, I just want to repeat that we're going to be looking to identify surviving family members of people who served in World War I, and we'll be getting help from our posts and from anyone else who wants to help. Our city historian spent last weekend going through libraries, I think it was Otis, and identifying those people who served. And as you heard him say earlier, some of them may not even be on the monument on Chelsea Parade, but it's our goal and task to identify everyone who gave and who served. So a lot more to be heard about, a lot more to be said. But we thank you for your indulgence very much. We'll begin in about 2 minutes. All set? Everyone, please rise. Begin with opening prayer led by President Pro Tem Bill Nash.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessings upon the members of this council as we assemble here in the chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all of our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and the wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark all of our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of our community. Amen.
Amen. Alderwoman Stephanie Burnham, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Okay, we'll begin this evening with citizen comment general. First person I have here signed up is Catherine Verano.
Right at the mic, ma'am.
Comfortable. Good evening, Councilor and members of the committee. I am Catherine Verano, the Executive Director of Safe Futures. Although I am new in my role this year, I've been with Safe Futures for 23 years in many capacities.
Excuse me, are you here to speak on the community development portion? Safe Futures is part of that composition.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
okay.
was here to,
Okay, we were only one list was actually signed by everyone. I believe it looks like people mingled the reasons why they wanted to speak. This part of the meeting is for an open discussion. People can bring any subject matter that's not on the agenda forward at this time.
okay.
And I want to make sure that your record is read into the record during the testimony concerning the Community Development Block Grant Program. Because if it's read in now, it won't be part of that.
Okay, so
So
I guess,
may I call you back up?
yes.
Thank you.
may. Thank
Okay, thank you. Again, only one sheet was used by everyone. There were 3 put out, but the next person listed is Lindsay Michaels. If you're here to speak on an agenda item itself, then I'll call on you later. Okay, thank you. Michael Jewell, that would be an item later, yes. Dave Skimhorn. How about Ray Seifert? Is there a Ray Seifert here? Okay, Glenn, I know you're here for an agenda item. Luke Kabadi? Agenda item. Okay, thank you. Then the microphone is open to anyone who would like to address the City Council. Yes, please, Beryl.
Beryl Fishbone, 19 Bliss Place. As chairman of the Mohegan Park Improvement and Development Advisory Committee, I entered 7 events that will be occurring at Mohegan Park in the next few months on the official webpage of the City of Norwich calendar section, where on the top of the page I read the following. Are you a nonprofit or other community organization which has an event, exhibition, performance, or fundraiser in the near future? If so, you can use the Submit an Event feature below to list your event on Norwich's website. Please allow a minimum of 2 business days for your event to be processed, and be aware that the city reserves the right not to list items inconsistent with this program or inappropriate for a community-based calendar. I entered the information for all 7 locally observed state and national events, but only 1 has ever appeared. I thought I missed a box to have them published, so I re-entered the information again and waited again, but nothing appeared. 3rd time, I entered the information, and I received the following response. Just wanted to let you know that since the city's website calendar has a limited amount of space, we prefer to post meetings for boards and commissions. Each item must be reviewed by either the mayor's or city manager's office to determine if it should be posted. Facebook is the preferred method for posting events, along with a flyer that you can send directly to me, and that was Jackie. If you have a specific event, we also suggest using the core calendar, for which she kindly sent me a link. Then, when I went on Facebook, there were postings under the heading of City of Norwich for church suppers and other events, but the events at Mohegan Park didn't qualify. An event on a calendar is a small thing, but it's a symbol of a much larger issue being played out throughout Norwich. If the language found at the top of the calendar is incorrect, change it. If you want residents to post to a different calendar, supply the link or the address so that it can happen. An apology is not needed to me or the advisory board, but to the residents of the city you serve. What other events are disappearing? Petty corruption is defined as the everyday abuse of entrusted power by public officials in their interactions with ordinary citizens. Corruption corrodes the very fabric of society. It undermines the trust people have in their political and economic systems, institutions, and leaders. Be the change that ends this practice of petty political corruption to one that demonstrates political transparency. I have faith that you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the council about any subject not on the agenda? Anyone else like to speak to the council during citizen comment? Third time. Anyone else like to speak to the city council under citizen comment? Seeing no one else, I declare it closed, and thank you very much for your comments. We'll look into that. Next is a proclamation. Regan? Alderwoman Gould would like to give a presentation to you.
Congratulations. Everybody know Regan Minor? So I have a proclamation here for you.
Mike,
I'm trying to get into the mic. Gosh, give me a minute.
one on the table.
Can everybody hear me?
No,
No?
the one on the table.
No.
Mike is on the table.
On the table.
Oh, they took it away. No, that one's off. I think. This one's on, right? Whereas Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation will present the Mimi Finlay Award for Young Preservationists to individuals aged 35 or younger, or groups whose members are 35 or younger. Whereas the award is presented to individuals who have demonstrated interest, involvement, and achievement, or potential achievement in the restoration, maintenance, preservation, or adaptive use of historic buildings. And whereas Regan Minor is this year's recipient of the Mimi Finlay Award for Young Preservationists. And whereas Regan Minor is a 2010 graduate of the Norwich Free Academy and went on to graduate from UConn with a bachelor's degree in history. And whereas Regan has been honored with a 40 Under 40 Award of Southeastern Connecticut, and in 2016 received the Governor's Tourism Award for Rising Stars. And whereas the Rose City is proud of Regan Minor and thanks her for the hard work she gives the city, from her position of consultant to the Norwich Historic Society, coordinator of Norwich Heritage Group, to being a member of the board of directors for the Leffingwell House Museum, and creating the Benedict Arnold Walking Trail. So therefore, Mayor Peter Albert Nystrom and Norwich City Council President Pro Tem William Nash, on behalf of the City of Norwich and the Norwich City Council and the citizens of the City of Norwich, do hereby congratulate and thank you for your hard work and dedication on behalf of the City of Norwich, dated this 5th day of April, 2018. Congratulations.
Public hearing. Number 1, relative to a resolution regarding the Community Development Block Grant allocation recommendations.
I declare this a public hearing open and invite members of the public to speak to us. Catherine?
Thank you again. So I am Catherine Verano, the Executive Director of Safe Futures. I am new in my role this past year, but I've been with Safe Futures for the past 23 years in many capacities. I came to Safe Futures from corporate banking 23 years ago after a very close friend and peer was brutally murdered by her husband. So I came to raise awareness and to save lives. I came on a mission. Our VAIL program and our partnership with law enforcement in Norwich and our counseling office in Norwich do just that. We raise awareness and save lives. Our application represents all of our programs and services. I would like to share with you tonight some of the ways we give back to our community. We work with law enforcement on a program called lethality assessment. Law enforcement at the scene of a crime will do an 11-question tool, questions and answers on a victim to determine if they are at high risk of being murdered, not just reoffended. We are also the state trainers on this for all law enforcement. Through the process, after the victim is screened, the police call our hotline immediately. We have a designated lap line for them to call to get the victim into a safety plan and services immediately. Last year, of the 118 screens the Norwich Police Department conducted, 58 were deemed at high risk of being murdered, and 57 of them were connected immediately to services and went into services. Another statistic is over 35% of the criminal court docket in southeastern Connecticut is domestic violence cases. So we take our training with community partners very seriously. Last year, we brought in a national expert on strangulation from the Strangulation Institute in San Diego. After learning that over 55% of our lap screens statewide, victims answered yes to being strangled in the past. So at no cost, we hosted a strangulation conference at Conn College, free to all law enforcement, prosecutors, medical staff, DCF, advocates, and other community partners on the documentation and effects of strangulation on victims to include traumatic brain injury, miscarriages, strokes, and other disabilities. We train along with the police chief and senior state's attorney at the Law Enforcement Council on the recertification process of law enforcement classes to include public policy, domestic violence, and the model policy for law enforcement. We are determined now more than ever to educate our community to help us together put an end to all types of violence, which include domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Michaels.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Michaels. I'm the victim advocate in law enforcement for Safe Futures. So although I've only been in this position for about 5 months, I've worked in law enforcement for 7 years in different capacities. Having a civilian ride with police is rare, but having a civilian work alongside the police going on calls is an anomaly. There's no other departments in New London County that offer this service of collaboration that bridges the gap of victim advocacy in law enforcement. While officers have certain responsibilities responding to domestic violence calls, having an advocate present aids them in providing victims with services that our agency offers that they might not be aware of. Even though I am only at the Norwich PD once a week, I know I'm making a difference for victims I visit each time. I prioritize home visits by those who have not been reached by our counseling or court offices. When visiting these clients with officers, I am showing them that the police are empathetic and someone that they can turn to for help. For one client, Officer Bourne and I went to a victim's workplace to meet with the officers there about a female employee coming into work with bruises. At first, she was hesitant to speak in a room full of male officers, but relaxed once it was just her, myself, and a translator. I gave her my contact card and made her aware of all the free and confidential services that we have to offer her, and she said she would call if she needed additional support, advocacy, or safety planning. The teamwork between myself and Officer Bourne each week is crucial in making a necessary impact on clients and helping them take back control and feel safe in their current situations again. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the council on the public hearing concerning community block grant awards this year? Please.
Good evening. Patrick Daly, Police Chief in Norwich. I want to echo the previous speaker's support of the Safe Futures CDBG application. Norwich should be proud of this program. It's all too often that in this day and age where municipal governments have the ability to partner with a nonprofit and have a successful program. This has been a model for the county and also the state, and it's been very, very successful. For a very small investment of money from the community development, we've had high returns. This is a program that works and deserves our support. We need to keep our citizens safe, and this is an inexpensive way to do it, and I'd recommend the supporting of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else like to speak during this public hearing?
Deanna Rhodes, I'd like to support the application of NCDC for the signs and awnings for improvements for buildings that are going to be new businesses in our downtown area and other eligible areas of the city. I think it'll be great, and I think it supports the change in the atmosphere and the aesthetics of the community, and it's quality of life issue for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing is still open. Anyone else like to join us on the Community Development Block Grant hearing? Anyone else like to address the council under the public hearing for Community Development Block Grant? Again, third time. Anyone else like to join us on the Community Development Block Grant hearing? If not, then I declare that hearing closed, and I thank all of you for sharing your comments.
Number 2, an ordinance appropriating $675,000 for integrating and improving Norwich Public Schools and City of Norwich administrative functions, and authorizing the issuance of $675,000 bonds of the city to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowing for such purpose.
I declare this public hearing open.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to withdraw this ordinance at this time. I think we still have some work to do with it, and I'd like to withdraw.
Is there a second?
Second.
It'll require your assent to it.
It's fine. I agree.
You don't need to vote. It's just,
Okay.
if both of the sponsors agree to withdraw it, then it's withdrawn. It doesn't need action by the council.
Okay.
Public hearing number 3, an ordinance appropriating $800,000 for the 2018-2019 capital improvements for the Dodd Stadium project, and authorizing the issuance of $800,000 bonds of the city to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, of making temporary borrowing for such purpose.
I declare this public hearing open, and the first person signed up speaking, I'm assuming in favor, is Michael Jewell.
Good evening. You assumed correctly, Mr. Mayor. My name is Michael Jewell. I reside at 601 Scotland Road. I'm here to speak in favor of the ordinance. By way of full disclosure, if you don't know, I've been sitting on the Baseball Authority for several years, and I'm currently sitting on the Baseball Authority. As you all know, our stadium is now 25 years old. We've had the ability to maintain the stadium through rents received for the normal wear and tear. However, we're at a point where certain parts of our stadium have outlived their life use. You can answer that.
That's not me. Don't look at me.
I'm good with that. Somebody can answer the phone. Therefore, the request for the $800,000 bond, or our support for the request for the $800,000 bond for capital improvements. You know, our stadium is a unique asset in as much as all the facilities and the buildings our city owns. And it's unique because of the requirements that it has, such as the lights, the field lights. You just can't go up there and hang some lights. you have to be in compliance with Major League Baseball. And if we're not in compliance, we're not going to have baseball up there. It's that simple, folks. And that's very important to us. And it's important to the minor league teams that play there, and it's important to the players. The netting. It's not a mandate today, but it's strongly been suggested to extend our netting out. And if you go to any major league park today, you're going to see quite a bit of that right now. Big ticket item, the HVAC system. I mean, it has to be replaced. You know, as a citizen, a taxpayer, a business owner who has a business downtown Norwich, and I have since '94, I am sensitive to the economic challenges which we all face here in Norwich and what we're up against. However, please keep in mind that, you know, it was an extraordinary accomplishment for such individuals, one sitting right here, to get Glenn Carberry, to get this ball club, to get minor league baseball into the city. Extraordinary when you think about it. And that was 25 years ago. And what I'm suggesting is, you don't want to let that go, folks. You really don't. I mean, when this baseball authority was created, the whole purpose behind it, what was articulated, if you look at the ordinance, the purpose was to promote and coordinate minor league baseball games, sports and recreational activities, community activities, and to provide for the health and welfare of all the citizens of this city. Let's not forget that. And that's probably my 3-minute buzz. All right, one thing. In order to keep minor league baseball in the city, the ordinance must pass. Because if we can't make these improvements, you're not going to have minor league baseball here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dave Skimmerhorn.
Hi, I'm Dave Skirmorn. I'm the general manager with the Connecticut Tigers. I'm also a Norwich native, so I think I have a pretty unique perspective on Dodd Stadium, having attended countless games as a fan and now as an operator of the facility. It's kind of a unique and a pretty challenging at times thing and a lot of fun as well. But I just wanted to take a couple minutes to outline what we feel are a few key benefits of Dodd Stadium to our community. Dodd Stadium has been home to much more than minor league baseball since 1995, and especially since 2010. Since day one, upon our arrival in Norwich as the Connecticut Tigers, we've made it our mission to reconnect with the community and to use the facility for much more. Each spring and fall, we bring over 80 different events to the city, above and beyond the 38 Connecticut Tigers home games, and make Dodd Stadium a community gathering place. Each spring, nearly 70 high school baseball games are played in the facility, including all the home games for Norwich Free Academy and St. Bernard. In making the stadium more accessible to the community, it's helped us to contribute over $1.1 million in total community benefit since 2010. This is through in-stadium fundraising, monetary donations, and gift-in-kind donations to help nonprofit organizations. By way of example, the Tigers have donated the use of Dodd Stadium for the Southeastern Connecticut Relay for Life since 2011. This has helped to raise over $700,000 alone for the American Cancer Society in those 7 seasons, or in those 7 years of hosting that event. In addition, over 175 total jobs are created annually for front office and seasonal positions. Many of those jobs are the very first jobs for local high school and college students, preparing them for future success. Finally, the impact this facility has on local business. In bringing fans and teams from around the Northeast to Norwich, it's also helping local businesses. Restaurants and local hotels, to name a couple industries, are very positively impacted by the events held at the stadium. Keeping Dodd Stadium in top condition is vital for our relationship with our partners with the New York Penn League, Minor League Baseball, and the Detroit Tigers. Most importantly, it provides affordable, family-friendly entertainment to the citizens of Norwich and southeastern Connecticut. Norwich is one of just 160 towns in the entire country that can say it has a minor league baseball team and a facility of this caliber. This should be a source of tremendous civic pride. This facility touches the lives of much more than just baseball fans. It's a part of the fabric of our community. Thank you again for your consideration. I also have a letter from Miles Prentice, who's the managing partner of the Connecticut Tigers ownership group. I don't know if you want me to read it or submit it, whatever his preference is.
You could submit it. We'll
Okay.
make copies available for the public and for all members here.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Ray Seifert? Glenn Carberry?
Hi, my name is Ray Seifert. I'm not a resident of Norwich, but I do live in Deep River, and I've been a season ticket holder for over 20 years. All summer, I drive to Norwich for the game. I bring my grandchildren. In fact, one of my grandsons played in a high school tournament at Dodd Stadium. I think it's a very valuable asset to the city. It's wholesome, family fun. A lot of cities would love to have what we have in Dodd Stadium, and I hope you vote to give them the money they need to improve the lighting and other improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn Carberry, please.
Good evening. Glenn Carberry, 27 Greenwich Court, Norwich. I know that there are a number of members from the Stadium Authority here today and from the Tigers who could speak to any of the particulars of this proposal. So I just wanted to make 3 points for your consideration based on my involvement in this project over the last 25 years. First, Norwich has received many economic and quality of life benefits from the stadium. I wrote an opinion piece about those benefits for the Norwich Bulletin this weekend, so I won't repeat that here tonight. But at the end of my remarks, I'd like to submit for the record a copy of that article, along with a copy of an editorial from the London Day entitled Maintaining Dodd Stadium Worth It for Norwich. The second point I'd like to make is that it was always anticipated, since this project began, that the city would need to make periodic investments in the stadium. This document here is a copy of the 100-page feasibility study which I wrote about the stadium in 1994. And this was the document that was relied upon by the Norwich City Council, NCDC, and the state of Connecticut in approving this project. The city's responsibility for repairs and replacements was described as follows. The third type of expense is a reserve fund for repairs and replacements. The author believes that setting aside $60,000 to $80,000 annually for repairs and replacements will help the city from having to seek additional funding every time renovations or major repairs are required, and will help preserve the community's investment in the facility. Most stadiums lack such a fund and are therefore required to seek state or local appropriations for stadium upkeep. So the point there is I want to make is that the city spent, I believe, about $1 million on capital items since the stadium was constructed in 1995. And if this bonding is approved, I think that total will be roughly around $1.8 million. This amounts to $75,000 annually for 24 years. So while financial pressures have from time to time made it impractical for the city to establish a repair and replacement fund for these types of exigencies, approving this bonding is consistent with the assumptions and the commitments made by the council several decades ago. My final point is that I'm one that believes that the best may be yet to come. There are some exciting ideas circulating about expanding the uses and expanding the users of the stadium. Maintaining a quality facility will ensure professional baseball remains in Norwich and open up other possibilities to use the stadium as a community resource. So I thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Luke Gabardad here?
Good evening. My name is Luke Gabordi. I'm the head baseball coach at Norwich Free Academy, and I also live at 21 Grant Court, Norwich. I just want to speak about how fortunate our baseball team at Norwich Free Academy has been to play at Dodd Stadium. Our kids' experience as high school players is enriched each year by our opportunity to play there. And we have a number of student events that happen at the stadium that have happened over my previous 4 years as the baseball coach. A lot of students come to watch the games. It's a really exciting atmosphere for them. And we're also fortunate to have the relationships with people like Dave and some of the other folks at the stadium who've done such a great job. And I just want to be here to give my support of this project going forward with the stadium to continue to benefit the students at Norwich Free Academy, both as fans of baseball and as players of baseball as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone else like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone else like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anyone like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Anyone like to speak in opposition to ordinance? Third and final time. Anyone like to speak in opposition to this ordinance? Seeing none, I declare this public hearing closed. And thank you all.
Second reading and action on the proposed ordinances listed above. So we're going to go to number 3. This is number 2. An ordinance appropriating $800,000 for the 2018-2019 capital improvements for the Dodd Stadium project and authorizing the issuance of $800,000 bonds of the city to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, making temporary borrowing for such purpose.
Entertain a motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Stacey Gould, second pro tem. And I need a motion to include the second action and reading of the full content of the ordinance. Is that included?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
I believe that this is the correct use of the city's bonding power and authority under the charter. The comments that we heard tonight are exactly on point. This is an economic development asset. This is a quality of life asset in the city of Norwich that countless other communities would love to have. And it is our responsibility to invest in the stadium, keep the stadium top-notch, attractive, keep the team there. This specific project, in some ways, is the result of a little bit of deferred maintenance and also not budgeting along the way for various different reasons. So, it certainly is, you can pay a little bit along the way, or you can pay a lot all at once. That is the situation that we're in, and frankly, those chickens have come home to roost, and now it's time to pony up the cash. I believe that the council must act on behalf of those quality of life issues that I mentioned. And to the comments of the baseball coach from NFA, the experience that those high school kids feel is not just limited to NFA and to St. Bernard's, but I would say to the entire league, to all of our opponents who come here and get to have that experience as well. And that was not always the case with the stadium, depending on the team and the management. So that is definitely a benefit. So I wholeheartedly support this ordinance, and I will be voting in favor of bonding this money. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Browning.
I, too, will support it. It's one of these situations where once you create a government service, you have to decide whether to continue to support it or whether to get out of it. And I can tell you that any reuse of that property, the cost would be fairly prohibitive since the stadium is large, concrete, and to repurpose it would be quite expensive. I will say that I tend to be fairly cynical. A time will come where, we may not be able to afford to improve the stadium to keep it in compliance with whatever Major League Baseball will require, say 25, 30 years. That time is not here yet. There's about $1.5 million in deferred maintenance. This takes care of the lighting and at least takes care of the emergency situation with the property, and we can go from there. And, $70,000, $80,000 a year is not unreasonable to maintain an asset owned by the city of Norwich. So I will support it. Future city councils will have to decide how much they are willing to spend on this facility and make their best judgments then.
Thank you, sir. A further comment, Pro Tem Nash, please.
I'll be in favor of this ordinance. I've sat here for a few terms now, and I've watched the stadium grow. I've watched it become more used by our community over the years with the pleasure of the teams that have been coming there. And I think the teams that are there are starting to realize the value of opening the stadium and allowing other activities and events like this high school and the college games and stuff that have been played up there. And I found the board, the commission on the baseball commission, to be extremely frugal and extremely diligent with their funding. They've made the little bit of money they get stretch very, very far. And again, sitting up here and watching us kick the can on many other things in Norwich, this is one can we can no longer afford to kick down the road before we lose the programs that are there. So I encourage my fellow council persons to support this and the city to understand that this is an investment in our city. And if we're not going to put skin in the game, we're not going to have a game here. So I hope everyone will support this.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Alderwoman Stephanie Burnham, please.
I also will be supporting this as someone who lives in Yantic. I get to see the fireworks sometimes, depending if it's a clear night from my deck. I also don't care about baseball at all, but I love, something comes over me when I go to the Norwich Tigers game. I love it there, and I love the day that you can bring your dog. I would encourage you could increase, ticket sales by having more than one day that you can bring your dog. But I'll be supporting this for all the reasons everybody else said. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Alderwoman Stacey Gould.
I will also be supporting this ordinance. When Gary Schnipp first brought this to my attention, I sort of inserted myself and said, what's going on here? My late mother, who never let me go out in the rain, 1996, 97, and 1998 was either fan number 1, number 2, or number 3 with Wally Sapansky and Tony Orsini. My mother sat in the rain to watch baseball because she loved Dodd Stadium. She had season ticket holders. We once had a picnic up there for our business, and my mother's grandchildren got to throw out the first pitch. So Dodd Stadium is near and dear to my heart, and while this is a lot of money, previous councils were not able to put the money aside, so we have to do this all at once right now with $800,000. But this is a tremendous asset that we have here in the city of Norwich, and I'm excited that we're going to hopefully put this money to excellent use, and that more and more people will go to games at Dodd Stadium. It is a beautiful facility, and I hope this sails through tonight.
Thank you. Is there further comment? I'll just add my support. I remember meeting Miles, his family members, and the team on the first day, 2010, April 1st. And that was a very good day for the city of Norwich. This stadium is more than a place for baseball. They have enriched many lives across different various needs. You heard about the Cancer Society. I can remember attending a Leukemia Society event with my own niece back in 2002. It's an opportunity for us to invest in our youth throughout our city, and so I look forward to the stated support of this council on a roll call. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Alderwoman Burnham?
Yes.
Alderman Browning?
Yes.
Alderman DeLucia?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Nash?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
So that's 6-0.
Motion passes 6-0.
City Manager's report.
Thank you. This is the City Manager report for April 16th, 2018. I had my monthly meeting with department heads on March 27th. Bridget Marks, Human Resource Director, is in the process of organizing a prevention workshop for sexual harassment for all employees. Ryan Thompson, Public Works Director, stated that his department will be paving approximately 7 miles of roads this spring. Deanna Rhodes, Planning Director, announced that the Blight Officer has been hired and will be starting at the end of April. Assessor Donna Ralston stated that Vision Appraisal has completed 4 of the 6 areas scheduled for Norwich revaluation. I have requested department heads submit quarterly reports for the council per their request from the goal-setting session in January. Their reports will highlight activities and accomplishments throughout the year and will be attached to my second report of the month immediately following the quarter's end. This report ending March 31st will include 3 quarters, July 17 through March 18. Going forward, the reports will be current for the current end of the quarter. Each department has come up with their own informational format, so if you have any questions, please contact my assistant and she will relay any requests or questions to the department heads. I had a conference call with Betsy Crum to finalize the read and use agreement, which I signed on April 6th. The mayor and Alderman Nash and I have met with members of the Norwich Historical Society regarding the proposed funding for the cannon that is to be restored, and also for the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day, which will take place in November 2018. The development agreement between the city and Burnham Square Development, LLC, for property at 19 North Cliff Street was fully executed on April 2nd. Otis Home, LLC, completed the purchase of 80 Broadway, along with the parking lot, which is 68 Broadway, on April 5th. We are looking forward to their restoration and investment in the building by creating a food hall, which will be another downtown destination. Betsy Barrett and Jackie Barbarossa welcomed 9 students from Kelly Middle School's program with Norwich and Family Services. The students toured City Hall from the basement jails to the attic and were impressed by the history of City Hall and council chambers. I received a press release from the U.S. Department of Justice regarding Norwich Police Department's investigation of an untimely overdose death of a 20-year-old Norwich resident. Thank you to the Norwich Police Department for their participation in this case, which has resulted in the arrest and guilty plea of the victim's heroin supplier. He is currently detained with sentencing scheduled for June 28, 2018. The Redevelopment Agency has scheduled a public meeting to prioritize sites for grant-funded brownfield assessments. This meeting will prioritize sites for grant funding based on factors such as public health, community needs, redevelopment potential, and owner interest. Municipal officials, residents, and property owners will have the opportunity to comment on the proposed work activities. The meeting will be held on Monday, April 23rd at City Hall in room 335 at 6 p.m. The City Manager's Office has received 3 neighborhood assistant applications and will continue to accept them until June 1st. I have the Treasurer's report from the Treasurer for the quarter ending December 31st, 2017 for your review. That's the completion of my report this evening.
Thank you. Are there questions of the City Manager? Yes, Alderman Burnham.
First, I want to make it very clear that Burnham Square is not this Burnham, so no conflict of interest there, make that clear. Thank you for your additional report. This did come up in our goal setting, and we spoke at length about this, about the importance, and for the members of the public, and I want to request that this either go up on a website or be distributed somewhere else, because I think this goes a long way to show the hard work that our departments and our employees do and the benefits that we all receive from them. I know that this was probably an additional administration for you to do. I would hope that we do something like this on a regular basis anyway, but I think that this report goes a really long way to paint the entire picture. It's a 10,000-foot view of the inner workings of the city, and I think it will be, it's a proactive measure for us to get answers to questions without having to ask you. So I think this is really, really great, and you know, for the people that question, oh, what do the employees do? Where does their money go? You know, this answers a lot of those questions, and I think it really paints the full picture that that we need up here as providing oversight. So thank you so much for doing this. So 2 requests: can this go up on a website somewhere, and also if that could be emailed to us as well, so that we have time to review either right after the meeting or in advance, so that we can ask follow-up questions if need be.
The answers are both yes.
Thank you.
Are there further questions or concerns? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, John.
Citizen comment on resolutions.
Declare citizen comment on resolutions open. If you come speak before the council, please identify yourself with your name and address and speak clearly into the microphone. And anyone like to please comment on the resolutions as listed on the agenda? Anyone like to speak under citizen comment?
Good evening, folks. Rob Dembski, 36 River Avenue. And I'd like to speak on resolution number 6 relative to requesting City Manager John Salamone to review and assist the council in identifying and prioritizing reductions to the expense budget by a target figure of 5%. I just want to say that I would favor the council following that resolution. It has worked well in the past. I think that it is a smart idea in no small part because it's reproducible. And maybe to steal an analogy from another agenda item tonight, it helps to create an environment in Norwich where businesses and future business owners, entrepreneurs, not only within the borders of Norwich, but more importantly, outside of the borders, can identify a playing field that is level for all contestants and has rules that are known and unchanging. When you establish those two ground rules for prospective business, you will attract them and keep them in the borders of Norwich. You'll increase the grand list and eventually come to a point where you won't need to reach for reductions because revenues will be coming in from outside sources other than the taxation of the citizens of the town, which, because of the decisions of previous iterations of the council, have left many people looking to leave this city rather than to come here. And so I think it is a worthwhile and smart proposal to pursue, and I hope that the council moves forward with doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I would like to speak under citizen comment. And I would like to speak under citizen comment on the resolutions on the agenda. Third time, anyone else like to speak under citizen comment on the resolutions on the agenda? Seeing no one else, I declare citizen comment closed. Thank you for your comments. Business.
Number 1, relative to the community development block grant allocations and approved funding recommendations.
Entertain a motion, please, to bring it forward. Alderman Stacey Gould, second by Alderman Burnham. Is there discussion? Alderman Stacey Gould.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution, to change in the, under recapture, where it says Norwich Fire Department Protective Equipment. I'd like to reduce that line item to $352,134, and increase, where it says Norwich Housing Authority, Rosewood Manor, increase that line item to the recommendation, to the level of $75,000.
Is there a second? Alderman Pro Tem Nash. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
I'd like to take this time to thank Chief Scand, who worked with me this morning, recognizing the value of getting Rosewood Manor, which is city housing for our elderly, our most vulnerable residents here in the city, to complete work that needs to be done for them to have an upgraded heating system. He was very gracious in reducing what he needs by $75,000 so that we could get this program, this rehabilitation of the completely new heating system for Rosewood Manor completed. I'd just like to publicly thank him for working with me this morning to get this done.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Alderman DeLucia.
I too would like to thank the fire chief for his work with Alderwoman Gould on this. The chief has already established himself as a needs-based budget type of person, and so I'm sure that his grant application was needs-based as well. And for him to scale back his needs in order to fund this other city need and to see outside of his own department is admirable and deeply appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Yes, Alderman Burnham.
Just for clarification, we've been allocated $760,000, and then we have other recapture funds at $432,607, right? That's the total amount that we're working with.
Yes.
All right, that comes to $1,192,600, but the total down here, there's a $6,000 difference. Why?
The director is here, if you'd like to.
Oh, okay.
Please.
Hi.
Kathy Crees. The actual amount that we had in for anticipated funding was $753,993.
Oh, okay.
So that's where you'll find the difference. And just for disclosure to the council, we expect that number to change a little bit. That's an anticipated number. The HUD budget was passed. We just don't have the final numbers yet. We expect it to be a slight, very slight increase.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Yes, President Pro Tem Nash.
I just want to echo the sentiments of Alderwoman Gould and DeLucia with Chief. This is not the first time the Norwich Fire Department has, I don't use the word sacrifice, but has bellied up to the bar for the city and other issues as well. So, Chief, again, thank you and thank you guys. But just everyone knows this is not the first time. This is a multitude of times, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion or comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? Yeah. Amendment. Yeah.
That too.
The amendment's unanimous, 6-0. The resolution as amended, unanimous, 6-0.
Number 2, relative to a reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Gould, second. Alderman Burnham. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion. For the members of the public, the person being reappointed as a regular member of the Zoning Board of Appeals is Henry Olander, Jr. All those in favor? Unanimous, 6-0.
Number 3, relative to scheduling a public hearing for June 18, 2018 regarding the R.E. Van Nostrand Neighborhood Assistance Act.
Motion to bring it forward, please. President Pro Tem Nash, second. Alderman Gould. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Again, that public hearing will be June 18th, 2018, for the public's identification.
Number 4, relative to adding members to the Plan of Conservation and Development Plan Implementation Committee.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Stacey Gould, second. Alderman Burnham. Is there discussion? Alderman DeLucia.
I'll be supporting this resolution. I think this is a great idea. This is part of what we've been talking about, of bringing more people from various departments and various entities within the city to the table to have a voice to help us drive this city forward. And this is a huge step in that direction. And I thank both Superintendent Dolliver and Ms. Adams for their willingness to step up and take on an additional responsibility to be part of this action. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Again, just for edification of the people listening, Abby Dolliver, our school superintendent, is being appointed, as is Angela Adams, who is in charge of the Norwich Greater Chamber of Commerce. All those in favor? Resolution? It's unanimous, 6-0.
Thank you.
Number 5, relative to an appointment of a regular member to the Ethics Commission.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Stacey Gould, second President Pro Tem Nash. Is there discussion? Alderman Stacey Gould.
I think I will be supporting resolution number 5. Robin Lawson will be an excellent addition to our Ethics Commission.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, 6-0 is the vote. 6, please.
Number 6, relative to requesting City Manager John Salamone to review and assist the council in identifying and prioritizing reductions to the expense budget by a target figure of 5%.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Gould, Pro Tem Nash. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
So I have a few questions about this, and we just didn't have time to get to it today, so, well, I guess we'll have to hash it out here on the floor. So in the second paragraph, where it discusses the proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year, but it uses this fiscal year's budget number. So that's a question mark for me. The last paragraph, again, talks about the adopted fiscal year budget, which we are currently in, but the dollar amount, 123 million change, is not even last year's budget amount. So unless, I guess I don't want to say it that way. Let me put it another way. Could somebody please help me understand why the numbers don't seem to jive with the past budgets?
Josh? That's supposed to be.
Hi.
Go ahead.
So the 135,448,29 is the total amount of the budget in the city manager's proposed 2018-19 budget, and that $123 million amount is the current year's general fund budget.
So on the first page of it, it's actually
Roman numeral 3.
yeah, in the budget binder, the total budget is 135 million as proposed, 135,440,829. So I guess my question, to boil it down to a single question, what are we looking to cut 5% from? Is it this year's budget amount and try to spend less money than we are this fiscal year, or are we trying to cut 5% from the proposed budget?
So in the last paragraph of Resolution 6's the Corporation Council has handed to me, the target would be 5% of 123,779,419, which is approximately $6.2 million. And that 123,779,419 is the value of this current year's general fund budget. The larger number that you see above, actually 132,038. The 132,038,436 is actually the 2017-18 total budget, including the general fund, the town consolidation district, and the city consolidation district.
Right. Why would we be looking to cut 5% from
I
that?
don't know. I mean, this resolution can be amended on the floor as necessary.
Peter wants to address.
So,
may I?
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
please.
The last paragraph, the 123 and change, that represents the 17-18 general fund budget, but it does not show what is collected through the fire tax, because that is a separate tax application. That's why you have a separate number there. The number listed at 218, 219, in this, there were several drafts of this resolution. I thought that was supposed to reflect this year's proposed one.
Yeah.
That was the last discussion you and I had.
Yeah, we talked about the different drafts. Either the fiscal year above it needed to be changed, or that number
It should
needed to be
reflect the
charged.
135 as proposed by the city manager.
So that, yeah, that should be, if you wanted to entertain a motion to amend it, then that figure should be $135,440,829.
For clarity's sake, that needs to take place. Yes. And I apologize, I don't know how this iteration got caught in it, but I thought we had straightened that out actually on Friday, but it should say 135,4 and so forth, as he stated. So it's consistent.
So in the last paragraph, the 123.8 million is in fact the proposed general fund budget number?
That is
Or
the
is that
current,
this year?
the 2017-18 general fund budget. The current year budget.
So then that's the wrong number as well. then.
132.
No?
No.
Shouldn't we be looking at, as you said, Mr. Mayor, the 135 should be in the second paragraph, 135 million and change should be in the second paragraph, and whatever the general fund amount is in the proposed budget should be in the last paragraph.
No, we're talking about the adopted budget.
But why would
The
we be
proposed
looking-
budget is in paragraph 2. Paragraph 6 actually reflects the same example that was used last year, the model. The council chose to go back to the general fund appropriations for the prior year to do the examination. So it is consistent when it says 2017, 2018. That was by intent. That's what happened last year. And as I will recall for the public record, the city manager then brought forward three actual exhibits with different levels of savings to be determined. And that is the same intent this time. It was to look at last year's general fund appropriation, again, not including what's collected through the fire tax, because that's a separate tax.
Again, I understand that. I just don't understand why we would be looking to examine a 5% cut to anything except the proposed budget. Whether it be the general fund amount or the total amount is regardless of the intent.
May I respond?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
But
The whole point is to reduce spending and reduce taxes. The budget that was proposed at 52.04 mils, I believe, for the Central Consolidated District, and the other proposed mill rate for the town, in at least my opinion and those of us who sponsored this feel that that's not the appropriate mill rate that we want to establish through our budget process. And so we developed an exercise last year that examined how much we spent the year before. It's a practice that business does. They look back the year prior and see how much they've spent, and they analyze the priorities for spending. And this resolution is to do just that again. Analyze the priorities, to take it a step beyond what was proposed by our city manager, and to examine it, and then to come back with recommendations from the city manager and the comptroller's office and department heads, because they're included in the examination, as to how we could further save money. If we do nothing other than accept the city manager's budget, our mill rate downtown is 52 mils plus. That is unconscionable to me. And I've heard others of this council say the same thing.
myself included.
We heard a member of the public at a public hearing, one of the first speakers, cite that that would be one of the top 5 tax areas across the state of Connecticut if we allowed that to happen. And so the intent of this resolution is to simply let our administration sharpen the pencil further and bring back recommendations to us, because you don't want to do that in a vacuum. We tried that in 2016. We did not include the city manager when we made cuts, and we came up with about $800,000 plus in savings. I would argue that's not enough if we're going to truly bring savings for taxpayers and businesses in this community. And so this resolution, let me first add, does not commit anyone to vote for any one of those exhibits. This is a resolution asking people to examine the budget further. And then the individual votes will take place as the exhibits come forward separately and new. But the intent was, in fact, to look at last year's appropriations, because a business should look at what they spent in the prior year and determine if it was well spent, the money. Because, again, it's not our money. It's the taxpayers' money. And I hope I haven't beat a horse to death. But that's what we were trying to achieve.
Well, I would say that any member of this council who feels that they would like to amend this to address the oversight or the mistake that's occurring in the second paragraph,
I agree.
Can have at it. In the 5th paragraph, the last paragraph, I understand your answer. I understand the intent. I've also heard that there's going to be multiple options at 3%, what 3% would look like, what 4% would look like, what 5% would look like. And if that's going to be the case, if that's going to be our direction to the city manager, then it should state that in this resolution. And last but certainly not least, it only talks about what the dollar amounts of expenditures would be. It only talks about what the mill rate would be. The resolution talks nothing about what the impacts on the individual departments would be. And I know we had a brief conversation about that. That would also be in the scope of what the city manager would present to us.
Yes.
I guess that's in the form of a...
Absolutely. That is his intent. Oh, you want to make that as one motion? Did I hear that correctly?
I think he was just asking, I believe.
I believe you just said making a motion?
I did not put a motion on the floor, no. I'm just trying to understand where we're going with this before we vote.
With the membership agreement, shall we address the dollar value in paragraph 2 separately? I would entertain a motion to change the numbers of 132,038,436 to the 135,40829. Entertain a motion so we can address that aspect.
Yes.
Alderman Gould, President Pro Tem Nash. Is there discussion on that amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. 6-0. Okay. The resolution as amended. Alderman DeLuce, you still have the floor.
Thank you. I'm still troubled by the last paragraph. I understand that what the verbiage says is that the city manager is requested to review the expense budget for the current fiscal year. Okay. The general fund amount of roughly $8 million. Okay. And reduce the expense budget as well as to identify additional or alternate possible sources of revenue to reach a target figure representing a 5% expense budget reduction. 5. I think that should be 5. Yeah, 3%, 5, 3%, 4%, 5%. If that's what we want them to do, then that's what it should say. I say, my opinion. And also of what dollar amount, the general fund dollar amount in the proposed budget. Is that the intent?
The intent was to, as stated, reach a targeted figure up to 5%. Last year, if I may, the city manager came back with his recommendation that we consider 3 separate exhibits, and each exhibit represented additional savings found for taxpayers if you adopted them. So he broke it down into 3 exhibits. It's our intent and our request that that practice still be followed. To look for a dollar amount today, it's impossible. The examination hasn't been completed. They're meeting with departments now as we speak.
Now, to your point, I completely agree. I am not saying that we dictate, that we should prescribe, better word, a dollar amount. I just want to know exactly what dollar amount we're asking for 5% of, or 4% of, or 3% of. It should be the proposed budget general fund amount.
I don't know, Josh, do you want to?
Is that not what we would do, or?
That's not what we did last year. Last year, we kept it somewhat generic, and we gave the latitude to the city manager and the comptroller's office to create the exhibits. And each exhibit then required a different level of savings if they were to have been adopted. As it was, they were in the end, but there were still changes. Things that had been removed were added back. Things that had not been taken out were removed. There was a give and take back and forth, which is what we're doing now.
And that dollar amount that those percentages are based on is going to be the current fiscal year's general fund dollar amount, according to this?
Not completely, because you have to acknowledge that there are fixed costs that are part of the 135 and change that will not be affected, such as pension payments, healthcare costs, debt service, things like that. You do not look at. It just doesn't happen. I'm forgetting others, but I mean, perhaps the comptroller could help.
Would it be, it's completely up to the discretion of the council, but would it be simpler to just give a dollar target rather than a percentage for clarity purposes, or?
I don't know. That might if I may, that may hamstring your opportunity. The bottom line, when this is all done, the city functions, the city still works, and we want to assure that the services we're intending to continue to provide work. That's why we didn't want to tie the hands of the administration. This is a goal. That's what it is. I mean, it was reached, I think, last year. Doesn't mean it'll be reached this year. It's a different year, and there's different circumstances. The one advantage we'll have, I hope, is the state will have finished its state budget. It is an election year, and they generally like to get their budget on time in an election year because they're running for re-election. We'll have another month to follow what they did. It won't be like we waited until October for them to pass a state budget. That was a nightmare. And then we learned we were being cut again after that. And so that's one of the concerns we have. When you look at the impact to the mill rate, once the mill rate's established, you don't want to go back and raise the mill rate again because the state cut us. I'd ask you to please consider that reality, because that's out there. Once the mill rate's established, you should live with your mill rate as a city. We're all concerned about that, which is why this proposal's here.
Okay, so I'm back to my original question. We are going to be asking the city manager to reduce the expense, reduce the budget based on the $123.8 million identified in the last paragraph of this resolution.
That's the intent of the resolution. That's where the assessment starts. That's not the product. The product is at the end of the day when we pass a budget as a council. And there's a lot of work to do between now and then. This is just the examination. That's all this is.
Well, I'd be interested to see what the results of this examination will bring forward. I'll say that I'd be satisfied. Well, I guess I'm going to have to put it in the form of a motion. I would offer up another amendment to this resolution that formally asks the city manager to provide us with the 3%, the 4%, and the 5%, and not just the 5% expense reduction.
Is there a second? Alderman Browning? Would you take comment from the city manager?
Certainly.
He's seeking to gain our attendance.
Be happy to.
I would suggest a little more generic language in the last paragraph where it reads, alternate possible sources of revenue to reach a target figure representing up to a 5% expense budget reduction. So up to then gives me the flexibility to do other parameters up to the 5 without saying, I might even do a 2%, 3, 4, 5. I don't want to be limited to that. If we say up to, that implies that there'll be other breakouts in that, Councilor.
And I would be agreeable to changing my proposed amendment to have that language.
Okay.
You have to ask Browning.
City Clerk, second?
Browning seconded the first.
Alderman Browning agreeing with his
Yes.
change to the language? Does the city clerk have clear language?
Correct. Target figure up to 5% reduction.
Yes.
Is there further discussion?
On the amendment.
Thank you. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment as offered? It's unanimous. Amendments passes 6-0. Is there further discussion on the resolution as amended? Yes, Alderman Nash.
I just want to say that last year, when we did this, I was kind of worried because we went and dipped into last year's budget to do the 5%, and I was concerned that we were really cutting back a lot, and I always believe that there's a line that we reach as city that we can't cross because it does become detrimental. And I do remember the newspaper articles and the many conversations in this hallway where people were calling us draconian and heartless and evil and all the rest of the stuff that you could possibly heap at a politician. And I hate calling myself that, but I guess that's what I am. However, the sky didn't fall. The city went on. Not only did the city go on, it's hired, it gave raises, and we're still chugging along, okay? And I'm not saying some departments didn't get hurt. I'm not saying some departments won't get hurt here. But I was really concerned last year when we did this, and as you all remember, because we also took criticism, this went down to the 11th hour, right to the 11th hour in council chambers, where we worked hard, and we were the only city in New London and Windham County that had a tax and mill reduction. Yes, it was tiny, but it was in the right direction to put us back on an even playing field with Preston and Baltic and some of the other surrounding towns. So I know this is nerve-wracking, and it's the worst part of sitting up here is this budget, but I think the 7 of us can get through this, and I think we're going to benefit the city of Norwich, and there's no harm in seeing what the city manager brings back to us like he did last time, and we have an opportunity to get a better scope of what's happening and to vote, I feel, a little bit more informed, because there's only so much you can dig into this budget before you get glazed over and start missing things. So that's all I got to say. I would be in favor of Resolution 6.
Is there further discussion on the resolution as amended? Yes, Alderman Browning.
I just have a question to Josh based on we're using a number from the general fund from 2017, 2018 of 123,779 and 419. What would that figure be with the proposed city manager's budget, which had a 2% raise? How much of a real difference is there, in other words?
Let's see. So 5% of the difference between the 5% of the two of those?
I'm saying that the city manager submitted a proposed budget, which obviously is going to get changed, but it was originally had about a 2% raise across the board. What we're seeing here is we're using a general fund number from the 2017-2018 as approved, 123,000. And I'll skip the rest of the numbers. I'm just asking what that number would be.
So the proposed 2018-19 general fund budget was $126.9 million.
That's right.
Okay.
It's about 2.6 million increase as proposed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would prefer to use that as our baseline for the 5% and less reductions. I think it's more realistic, but I understand we have a motion on the floor.
What's that? You still have the floor, Alderman Browning, if you wish it.
I just want to see, does anyone want to support an amendment of that number to the 126?
Is there further discussion?
Okay, I will, I do not have a proposed amendment. I've talked to my peers.
Thank you. Is there further discussion or comment? Yes, Alderman Burnham.
This is just a point of procedure. This is our budget now. City manager did his job. This is our budget. We own it. And, right?
Once we vote on it in May, it becomes our budget. It is still his budget,
Okay.
technically,
Okay.
yes.
I'm just curious as to why we need a resolution to do this, rather than just provide some direction.
It was to provide direction, input from members of council, departments, everyone, not to, again, to do it in a vacuum. I mean, I'm old enough to remember city councils who walked in one night, did a budget, went home when it was done, and it went page by page. There was no public comment. There was no sharing of ideas. There were no printed resolutions. There was nothing. This is to be an open and transparent process. That's what this provides us. And these will be public documents, these exhibits as well.
Yeah, no, I understand all that.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It was just a question about procedure. I'm done.
Thank you. Further comments, concerns? Yes, Alderman Delucia.
I'd just like to say I'm not trying to be difficult about this, and certainly this process is painful enough. I just want to be perfectly clear of what numbers that we're being asked to work with. That, you know, and that is really the beginning and the end of it. So please don't, citizens, please don't think that I'm trying to make this any harder or more painful than it already is for all of us. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I don't think anyone takes it that way. This is very serious stuff. Any further comments, questions? If not, yes.
Maybe we need like a whiteboard in here so we can just map out. Everybody can see what we're doing. And don't get confused.
Okay. We ready to vote?
Is that a motion?
Okay. All those in favor of Resolution 6? It's unanimous, 6-0. And thank you all for your concerns, questions.
Number 7.
Thank you, Josh.
Number 7, relative to listing 347 Central Avenue.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Stacey Gould, second. Alderman President Pro Tem Nash. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, 6-0.
New business ordinance number 1, an ordinance amending sections 7-132.2 and 7-131.4, small c, of Article 6 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the size and replenishment of the general fund unrestricted fund balance.
Entertain a motion to schedule for a public hearing and to waive the full text for the reading for this ordinance. It would be May 7th. May 7th is the date for the public hearing. Nash and Gould. All those in favor? Unanimous, 6-0.
Executive session.
I hereby move pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 1-200, subsection 6, that the members of the Norwich City Council go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the acquisition or disposal of real estate or interest in real estate when publicity regarding the proposed acquisition or disposition would cause a likelihood of an increased price to acquire or a diminished price to dispose of the property, and to review information given the city in confidence not required to be disclosed by law. City Manager John Salamone, Comptroller Josh Cothier, Corporate Counsel Michael E. Driscoll, Mr. Robert Reed, and Attorney Theodore Phillips shall be asked to participate during all or portions of this executive session at the request of the City Council.
Second. Pro Tem Nash. All those in favor?